What is up? Welcome back. 2024-25 NBA season previews. My name is Matt Hanifan. I'm here with Jiarmani. Today we're going to be doing the Washington Wizards, who won 15 games last year. No, this isn't the NFL where they would go 15-2. This is the NBA where they went 15-67. But first off, Jiarmani, man, what's going on?
Matt, I'm doing fantastic today. I'm getting ready to talk a little bit about the Washington Wizards. 15 games, yeah, like you said, would have been fantastic if they were an NFL squad. But oh my god, I remember we talked about them last year, and it's funny because I didn't think they were going to be this bad. But I mean, I know they were going to be bad, but this bad, like I think was that the worst record in the NBA? Actually, yeah, no, Detroit was worse, but if I remember,
it was like neck and neck. They were trying to lose more games than Detroit, who had like a 26 game lose or whatever it was.
Fighting to be the king of the bums is crazy.
Yeah. Anyway, yeah, Washington Wizards 15-67 last year after trading away Bradley Beal. They got Jordan Poole back. Yay, Jordan Poole. He's going to be on contract for a few more years. They had the number 2 overall pick, They drafted Alex Sarr. A couple of things that I liked from them is they did trade Denny Advia. Even though he's a good player, they were able to stack draft assets in addition to getting Malcolm Brogdon's contract that they can then flip with the deadline potentially. They were able to draft Buff Carrington, a guy who I liked a lot. They got Keyshawn George from Miami. But I guess before we jump into things, like what were your overall thoughts from Washington last season, expanding on your previous thought about not thinking they'd be terrible, but what were your kind of thoughts on like what they did, the direction, the offseason, any and everything in between?
So my thing with Washington, I know we talked about this a little bit earlier on, like before we even got started, is that I thought Jordan Poole was going to have a far better season, being his first year away from Golden State, kind of get out of for lack of a better term, like the toxic pool that he was in with like the whole Draymond Green situation and getting that big fat contract that it seems like Golden State instantly regretted after they won the championships, giving him that to him. So I was under the assumption that Jordan Poole going to be like the main option, even if it was for like a middle to bottom tier team that is just traded their star to a different squad and Bradley Beal, that Jordan Poole, we were going to see him throw like 25 shots a game, and he was going to be not near the tops of the league in scoring, but he was going to have a huge like increase in terms of production. And trying to pull up his stats now, just to see how he did last year. He averaged 16 points a game and 3 rebounds with like 4 assists, and his efficiency was down. So I was thinking more of he was going to be like, mid 20s. Like even in Golden State, he averaged 20 points a game, and that was like on and off the bench at times. So that with the combination of like Kyle Kuzma, like the team offensively was like middle of the pack, like just pulling up the stats here, like they were right in the middle of the league when it came to points per game, and then like obviously like defense is really where they fell because they were the worst defensive team in the NBA. And like I'm just looking at down the stats, like score margins like 29, you see like rankings 24, 30, 29. Like it's real hard to try to like get anything going when like those are kind of, if that's like how your team is overall, like you're middle of the pack offensively, but you're absolutely dog water when it comes to trying to prevent buckets on the other end. So hopefully like some of those guys that you mentioned earlier, bringing some of those guys in, even more young guys, and like obviously Alex Sarr being some foot forward, hopefully he'll be able to kind of help at least right the ship a little bit, because even if they're middle of the pack offensively, if they can at least make their defense a little bit better, like that's obviously a good sign for improvement already. But I need to see Jordan Poole be better if this team wants to kind of start like going in the right direction.
Couple other footnotes from last season. Wes Unseld Jr. He was relieved after 43 games. They brought in Brian Keefe. He went 8-31. I thought just watching it and tracking their development, I thought he did a good job developing some of their guys, and they brought him back this year, which I thought was a good move. They traded Daniel Gafford midseason last year to the Dallas Mavericks. They traded DeLon Wright to my beloved Heat. they made some moves at the deadline. They still have Corey Kispert. They still have some other guys. Like one guy that I have a lot of stock in is Bilal Coulibaly, and I think he's going to have a much better season. I mean, he's still young, he's still raw. Um, Obviously, they signed Jonas Valanciunas in the offseason 3 for 30, even though I just think that he's going to be a guy that's probably going to be moved at the deadline for potentially a team that needs a center. Kind of funny. New Orleans is now a team like hot in the discussion. The Shams came out the other day saying that Herb Jones is going to be playing center, which I find really interesting. It's just like, why didn't you just guys just bring back Jonas? Like, kind of a weird move. Again, Bub Carrington was the guy they drafted 14 overall in one of the picks they got from Portland, who had a couple first round picks. Portland drafted Donovan Clingan, I think it was like 7 overall, but they traded 14. They get Bub Carrington, who I think is going to flourish. Like I love Bub Carrington, mid-range maestro, one of the best pull-up jump shooters in the draft. They signed Sadiq Bey, which I thought was interesting. I know he's coming off a torn ACL injury. They have a couple other guys there. So, I mean, I don't hate some of the moves that they made in the offseason. They were able to get, again, Malcolm Brogdon, who's making, I think, 23 million this year on an expiring contract. They can flip that at the deadline if they want to, as long as Brogdon's able to stay healthy. Alex Sarr is a guy who I know didn't have a good summer league, at least offensively, but at least through these first couple of preseason games, and you can see some of the summer league tape, like I think at some point during his career, he's going to be a player who leads a top 10 defense just because of the movements. He's so versatile. Like he can legit defend 1 through 5, or at least I think he will be able to, at least within the next 2-3 seasons. He's very agile. He has good dexterity. Like he's good with his hands. He creates deflections. He can he's very nimble on his feet. Like he can match his speed, his quickness with like smaller point guards. Or at least I think he'll be able to consistently, again, within the next 2 or 3 years. Like you could see why they took him. I know the 3-point shot isn't perfect. I want to say he's shooting it well in preseason so far. So like at least he's developing that. He kind of showed that a little bit when he was in overseas. Again, it wasn't consistent or anything like that. He's still really young and he's still really, really raw offensively. But I'm still, I guess, holding out hope there because I know, again, summer league, I don't remember what the game was, but he did not shoot the ball well and everyone was coming for his head. And I know that's all that people look at when it comes to, summer league and looking at the numbers and whatnot. But
Yeah,
I still think I'm still holding out hope there. Kyle Kuzma's still there. He's on a front-loaded contract. I think teams should be trying to trade for him at some point. I already mentioned Corey Kispert, one of the better 3-point shooters. I think like at least one of the more underrated shooters in the league, and I think he's going to be a guy that some teams are going to be wanting to get at some point. So yeah, I mean, 15 games. I don't think this team's going to be good. Like I like some of the pieces. I like some of the stuff that they're doing. I like their coach, but I'm not trusting this team's going to win like 20 games. I mean, Cooper Flagg's right there. Like
yeah.
this team is going to be bad, but I think they're moving in the right direction in terms of stacking assets in the Denny trade with Brogdon, with a couple of the picks that they got. And I think there's more to do with trading Kyle Kuzma, potentially trading Jonas Valanciunas, potentially. Potentially trading Corey Kispert, kind of like what they did with Denny. Like, I don't know. There's some moves to be made potentially that they can explore and then kind of continue to build a foundation around Sarr, around Bub Carrington, around some of these guys that they just got. Do you have any do you think they're going to be a team that's going to win 15, 20? Like where do you see their season outlook going?
I guess like they just like kind of compact your question. Do I think that they're going to be over or under 15 wins? So like I would say I'm gonna take the over on 15 wins. I think like bringing in Sarr and he's gonna find his footing in the NBA. Like to your point, it's like his summer league. Like you would I didn't even watch the games like that, but you just see like that's the headlines coming out of those games. Like he takes like 10 shots and missed all of them and that kind of thing. It's like that's what like people are always like just to put it in perspective, Ben Simmons, he like we knew he wasn't going to have a jump shot, but then this guy, if you look back at his summer league tape, this guy was taking mid ranges like he was DeMar DeRozan on those dribble pull ups and taking like slight step backs and stuff like that. And people would think, and people were saying, "Oh, this guy's gonna be the next LeBron James," this, that, and the other. Obviously, now like he was still a good player, but obviously that's not the case at all. So like we just like it feels like sports fans and NBA fans always are just like, "Oh, what have you done for me recently?" Kind of mindset. If you allow yourself to be, but I would say I'm taking the over on Washington being over 15 wins, even if it's by 16 or 17. I'm still taking the over. I don't think they can get any worse than what we saw last year. And to your point, I think they got a lot of guys, a lot of tradable contracts, and a lot of tradable players. So like Sadiq Bey, like this is more like a kind of like an audition kind of season, being like, hey, I can still play, I can still contribute. Like the dude's only like 25, 26 years old, so it's more of he's gonna. A lot of these guys are gonna find their places. Like look at the team last year when it's like the guys they traded. They traded Porzingis. They traded Gafford, as you mentioned. And then like somebody like Tyus Jones gets acquired in a trade, and then like he has himself a good season. Then he ends up signing with the Suns. Like um, until Washington can get that, I guess that player that's like, all right, this is the guy we got, and this is the guy we build around. Let's say Cooper Flag, for example. This is the guy we build around. Now we can start trying to get ourselves back to relevancy. But it doesn't seem like they have anybody like that. They have some pieces that they can hang on to, but I think this year is definitely not the year to kind of be optimistic about a young team on the rise. It's definitely not what they are, because like OKC is a young team on the rise. That's the true definition of a young team being on the rise, and that's just not what Washington is at the moment.
No, they have again like a few pieces in a foundation that they can continue to work. Again, this is a multi-year project for them. It's it's been a project for a while, and they were finally able to get off the Beal contract, which they were in perpetual mediocrity. And now they picked a direction. They're able to they got the number 2 overall pick. Who knows what pick they're going to get this year? This draft class, these next couple of draft classes are going to be loaded. Even outside of Cooper Flag and AG DeBenson, like these next couple of draft classes are going to be loaded. So they're going to be able to continue to add to this roster. Just a couple other guys that I want to mention. Marvin Bagley is still there. There was someone else that I forgot to mention too. I don't think it's going to be hard for them to move Sadiq Bey just because I don't know if he's going to play this year with his ACL injury. He may, I don't know.
I was gonna say, when did like he actually go down with that? Was that near the end of the season?
It was like in March.
Oh, okay, yeah, then maybe.
Yeah.
Well, I mean,
So I don't know if he's going to play this year.
My point still stands, because I don't know.
Yeah.
I don't know what the contract is, but either way, he's gonna find himself.
It's a 3-year contract, and it's pretty inexpensive, around $6 million a year.
He's got to get traded at some point. He's going to come back and still play. It's obviously the timeline's a little bit further out, because like
it may be next year, like after
exactly.
February of 26, where they're able to explore that, or
like
if
the Celtics
a team is willing to take
Gallinari
it in the offseason for some reason, then cool. But this should be a team for the next, however many, like they should be a team at the deadline, or even at the deadline in the offseason. Again, I keep referencing the Brogdon trade when it comes to this, like take on the bad contracts, stack as much assets as you can. And then again, with Brogdon, in Brogdon's case, like then flip them at the ensuing point where you can, whether it's the deadline where you acquire them at the deadline, or like this is what you should be doing to kind of kickstart this rebuild. In addition to, again, I love Bub Carrington. I think he's going to be fucking awesome there at some point. I like Alex Sarr. Like, continue to build what you got and continue to take on those assets and continue to stack those assets with the bad contracts. All bad teams should be doing that. Like, Detroit was another team this offseason who I think kind of figured that out. And so it was just like, okay, continue to just keep adding on these bad assets, these bad contracts, in addition, not bad assets, but continue to add on the bad contracts, stack as much assets as you can with those bad contracts, and then see if you can sell high on them or sell medium on them, and so they're not you don't have to attach anything to them once you have to part with the deadline for even more assets that you're coming
Yeah.
back on. Yeah, I don't think this team's going to be good.
I
I
I
I
I look
genuinely think this team can win less than 15 games.
Wait.
But at the same time, that also plays into account. Like, yeah, I don't think Kyle Kuzma is going to play the entire year here.
Yeah, I could see him getting. I can see him getting
I
shut
don't
down.
think Jonas Valanciunas is going to play his entire season there. I don't think Brogdon's going to be there. Not that Brogdon's going to make a whole worldly impact, but I don't think he's going to be there the whole time.
Yeah.
I don't think, again, Kispert he's going to be a restricted free agent next offseason. He may not play the entire season there. There's pieces that can be moved and probably will be moved. Like shit, you could probably list 10 teams right now that could get a guy like Kuzma or Valanciunas.
Yeah.
Not to say that's going to happen in the second apron era where teams are reluctant to trade for some of these guys, but Kyle Kuzma's contract is a front-loaded contract. He's making 23.5, 21.5, and 19.4 the next 3 years. That's some team at some point is going to want that contract on their books. Just like value proposition with how good of a player he actually is, or how much he's developed over time. Like, I think a team's going to want that contract. Jonas Valanciunas, 9.9, 10.4, and then he's, I think, a $10 million. I don't know if that's partially guaranteed or non-guaranteed at the last year of his contract. That's another one where as soon as he's eligible to be traded in December, that's when the rumors are going to, kick up. I know. And the Knicks probably are no longer a team that's in the hunt for a center because they just got Cat. But teams like that are going to be in the hunt for a center, especially one. Again, back to the New Orleans thing. I don't know why they just let him go like that. Maybe I'm missing something. They have, to your point, they have tradable contracts. And so, like, this team can win 14, 15, 16 games. Brian Keefe is a good, he's in a bad situation. I know it's going to affect his win-loss record, but I do think he did a good job developing some of these guys. Like, I think he'll do a fine job developing Koulibaly, who I thought was a good prospect in France, and I think he's still very raw. He's going to be entering his age 20 season. Like, there's still a lot to be done there. I think he'll do a fine job developing Sarr in whatever way he wants to. I think he'll do a fine job developing a guy like Bubka. Like, there's so much shit that he's gonna have tasked with developing.
Yeah.
So, like, I think he'll do a fine job developing those guys, but it's, again, a multi-year project.
Yeah, and it's funny because we're talking about bad contracts and how it's a process for this team, and it can't escape my mind enough that how I feel like how much they kind of set their team and their organization back, signing John Wall and signing Bradley Beal to those massive contracts. Like, John Wall, I understand he was one of the best point guards in the NBA at the time of signing him, and then obviously you can't predict that he was going to tear his ACL, he was going to tear his Achilles, and then he wasn't really going to be the same explosive point guard that like we all knew him to be. But the Bradley Beal one, you should have traded Bradley Beal like 3-4 years ago. You shouldn't have even gotten to the point to let alone sign him to a max contract and let him get a no trade clause when somebody like Kevin Durant doesn't have a no trade clause. I think like the only other person who had a no trade clause in the NBA was LeBron, and I don't even think he has like a unofficial no trade clause kind of thing in his contracts and stuff like that. But
He
it's just
does now. I think with this extension he signed, I think it was last year, he has a no trade clause. But again, Beal was like the only one who did. None of these guys actually do because it completely fucks your leverage if you're a team, and so no team is going to actually want to do that.
Yeah. So it's like, again, so it's like all the more mind-boggling why Washington would even do something like that. It's like, if all these other players and all these other organizations ain't doing it, it's like you're not you're not you're not pioneering a new way of like structuring contracts. You're just a cautionary tale of why you don't do something like that, especially a guy who is getting closer and closer to that age 30 season as like a on the smaller side when it comes to like stars in the NBA and stuff like that, and he already had like a little bit of history with injuries, but like it's all the same time. It's like you put your team back like so much. I mean, you were able to get out of the contract, but that shouldn't you had all the leverage and how you were playing with house money when he was in his mid-20s and he was putting up 30 points a game. That was him at his absolute highest, and you wait and then you trade him to Phoenix. I mean, at least now he's like it's Phoenix's situation to deal with now, and you have like you put yourself in this position, but it's just like it seems like everything that's happened to the Wizards since then has just been a domino effect after taking too long to trade Bradley Beal and even signing him to that contract when everybody was scratching their heads to begin with. But um no, but yeah, hopefully like that's how the NBA works. Like your team will go through pitfalls, some deeper than others, and then they'll find their way back to relevancy at some point. So like, hopefully, this doesn't like have it last too long. But it's just I can't escape my mind the fact that it's like all this has really been happening. The fact that you signed Bradley Beal more so than John Wall to that massive contract, just a couple of years ago.
And even John Wall, like his knees gave out. So what good would I mean? That's obviously easier to look at in hindsight. But
Yeah. It's like you can't predict those things. So like I don't blame them for signing John Wall. I more can blame them for signing Bradley Beal to that lucrative extension. So
yeah, I think Will Dawkins, who's the GM there, I think this is going to be his second year, third year. He's from he came from the Prestige tree, and so I think he'll do a good job. I think I trust what he's doing right now, and I think they're going to do a fine job. Any last thoughts? Any parting thoughts?
I mean, Wizards fans, in best case scenario, you guys are celebrating a 20-win season. And
Well, best case scenario is less than that. Best case scenario is like you win 13 games and get the flag.
yeah, I guess. Actually, yeah, I guess if you're looking at it from that point of view, you want to be optimistic. Like you guys get the number 1 overall pick, you're able to bring in Cooper Flag, and then that's your superstar to build around going forward. But
while these other guys develop,
exactly,
like while you see positive development from the guys that you want to see positive development from, and you win like 15 games or some shit, and
all the
you
young
get the
guys
number one. You get into the number 1 pick or even a top 4 pick.
I would at least hope in their case, because obviously like, you still have to go through that season of Wizards basketball before you can get to that point. At least hope that these guys, like as they're developing, it turns them into at least a competitive team, like kind of like those trap games that a lot of people like to call like certain games on the schedule. It's like, oh, we got Washington. Like, hey, you guys may win the game ultimately, but like 10, maybe 10, 12 points. But it's like it's going to be a fight those first 3 quarters, and then obviously like you guys are going to start pulling away. But hopefully that's what like people can hope for when it comes to watching Wizards games. But I mean, if worst comes to worst, it ends up ultimately getting you a top 3 pick or even the top pick. Then hey, it's a step forward. Okay.
Yeah.
Gone are the days for signing a 30-year-old to a or a 29-year-old to a 4-year contract with a no trade clause.
Yeah, again, as long as best case scenario you see positive development, you're able to at least get some assets at the deadline, some picks, maybe some young pieces, which I think is less likely. But you get first round picks from whomever, nonetheless. And you're able to get Cooper Flag. Like that's your best case scenario, even with bad basketball.
You can only hope.
I trust. I like the coach. I like the general manager. I like some of the pieces, but it's going to take time. My name is Matt. This is Jiarmani. Thank you all for watching. Please go like and subscribe. Please go comment on the videos. We'll be having our NBA season previews up until October 27 when opening night is. In addition, Major League Baseball, the ALDS and the NLDS and the wild card series were insane. We haven't even gotten to the CS, to the World Series yet. That's going to be starting this weekend. NHL season just started this last week. The NFL season, that's in full swing. College football's in full swing. Please go check out Trey's draft notes in addition to all of our other content on BizSportsMedia.com. We'll be having our season previews written over there. My name is Matt. This is Jiarmani. Thank y'all for watching. See y'all next time.